The warning lights flashed red across the Colorado Deep Space Station as the strangest message humanity had ever received came crackling through space. Commander Jake Mitchell had been drinking his third cup of coffee when the computers started going crazy, trying to decode something that shouldn't exist. "What the hell is this?" Jake muttered, staring at his screen. The translation software was working overtime, converting alien languages into English. What he read made his blood run cold. Lieutenant Amy Parker burst into the command center. Her face pale, "Sir. You need to see this. We're getting the same signal from every listening post on Earth. It's not directed at us specifically. It's being broadcast to the entire galaxy." Jake leaned back in his chair, reading the message again. The Zephyrian Coalition, 12 different alien species. Ancient civilizations that had existed when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. And they were all dying. "Well, tell me about this void rot thing," Jake said, his voice steady despite the fear creeping up his spine. Amy pulled up her tablet, her hands shaking slightly. "From what we can translate, it's like a living darkness. Doesn't just destroy planets, it consumes them entirely. Stars, planets, moons, everything just disappears. The aliens say it's spreading faster than they can evacuate their people." The message described horrors that made Jake's imagination run wild. Entire solar systems vanishing overnight. Billions of alien beings, creatures with families, dreams, and hopes just like humans running for their lives from something that couldn't be reasoned with or fought. "How long have they been fighting this thing?" Jake asked. According to the message, about 50 Earth years. "We've tried everything. Weapons that could crack planets in half, shields that could stop supernovas, even time manipulation technology. Nothing works. The void rot just keeps spreading, and it's getting faster." Jake stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the Colorado mountains. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness of space, ancient civilizations were facing extinction. These weren't primitive beings asking for help. These were species that had mastered technologies humans couldn't even dream of. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "they're asking for help from anyone who receives the message. But honestly, what could we possibly do? We just figured out how to travel faster than light last year. Our most powerful weapons are like firecrackers compared to what they have." Jake turned around, his face set with determination. "Lieutenant, when someone's drowning, you don't stop to ask if you're a good enough swimmer. You jump in and try to help. But sir, this isn't some local emergency. This is 12 alien species, some of them millions of years old, with technology we can barely understand. What makes you think we can help when they can't help themselves?" The commander walked back to his desk and pulled up the communication system. "Maybe that's exactly why we can help. Sometimes when you're too close to a problem, you can't see the solution. Fresh eyes, different perspective, who knows?" Amy watched as Jake began typing a response. "Sir, shouldn't we contact the president first, or the UN? This is way above our pay grade." "We'll contact them next," Jake replied, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "But people are dying out there right now. Every second we waste in meetings and committees is another second the void rot spreads. What are you telling them?" Jake paused, his hands hovering over the keys. "The truth. That we're a young species with limited technology, but we're willing to help however we can. They're going to think we're crazy. A species that's barely left its own solar system, offering to help civilizations that have existed since before our planet formed. Maybe," Jake admitted, "but I'd rather be crazy and helpful than smart and useless." The message was simple and direct. Jake identified humanity as the dominant species of the Sol system, acknowledged that they had received the distress call, and offered whatever assistance they could provide. He didn't make grand promises or claim they had miracle solutions. He just said they wanted to help. "Send it," Jake ordered. Amy hesitated for a moment, then pressed the transmission button. The message shot out into space at faster than light speed, carrying humanity's first words to the desperate alien coalition. "Now what?" Amy asked. "Now we wake up every important person on Earth and tell them we just volunteered our entire species to help save the galaxy." The holographic projection flickered to life in the secure bunker beneath the Pentagon. and Admiral Lisa Thompson found herself face to face with the most incredible sight in human history. The emergency council chamber of the Zephyrian Coalition. Stretched out before her, filled with beings that challenged everything she thought she knew about life in the universe. To her left sat what looked like a walking mountain of living crystal, its faceted surface reflecting rainbow light with each movement. The creature's thoughts seemed to create actual light patterns that danced across its transparent body. Next to it floated a being that appeared to be made of swirling gas and electricity, constantly shifting between different colors and densities. Lisa had been briefed on what to expect, but seeing these ancient beings in person was something else entirely. Some looked vaguely familiar, like the insect-like counselor Veth who towered over the others with 6 arms and compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Others defied description completely, geometric shapes that moved with purpose, sounds that somehow had physical presence, creatures that existed in dimensions her brain couldn't quite process. The past 3 days had been the most intensive Lisa's military career. After Commander Mitchell's initial contact, every government on Earth had gone into emergency session. The United Nations Security Council had held marathon sessions. Scientists had worked around the clock to understand the alien technology needed for communication. Military leaders had tried to wrap their heads around a threat that made nuclear war look like a playground fight. Admiral Thompson, Counselor Veith's voice came through the translator with a strange, clicking undertone. Your species responded to our call faster than any other. Most civilizations take months to even acknowledge our distress signal, if they respond at all. Lisa nodded respectfully. Counselor, when someone calls for help, you answer. That's just basic decency. A ripple of movement went through the assembled aliens. The crystalline being's light patterns shifted to what the briefing notes suggested might be confusion. Elder Kryn, the energy being, flickered between blue and yellow rapidly. Admiral, Elder Kryn's voice sounded like controlled lightning. We have studied your species' recent history through your broadcast signals. You are aware that we possess technology thousands of years beyond your current capabilities. Weapons that can shatter moons, shields that can deflect stellar explosions, computational systems that can model entire galaxies. Yes, sir, we're aware, Lisa replied calmly. Then surely you understand the futility of your offer? If we, with all our advancement, cannot stop the void rot, what could your species possibly contribute? Lisa had expected this question. The President, the Joint Chiefs, even her own staff had asked the same thing. What could humanity possibly offer to beings who had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire? Counselor. Veth, Elder Kryn. With respect, you're thinking like engineers, Lisa said, standing straighter. You see a technical problem that needs a technical solution. But maybe that's not what this is. The insectoid counselor's compound eyes glittered. What do you mean? Sometimes the answer isn't better technology or bigger weapons. Sometimes it's just more hands helping, more minds thinking, more hearts caring about the problem. Lisa paused, choosing her words carefully. We might not have your advanced science, but we have something else. We have 8 billion people who, when they heard about your situation, immediately wanted to help. 8 billion, okay? The crystalline being's light. Patterns shifted to what looked like surprise. Your entire species knows about our crisis. Every human on Earth knows about you now, Lisa confirmed. Our leaders decided not to keep it secret. You know what happened? We didn't get panic or demands to hide. We got volunteers. Millions of them. Scientists offering to work for free. Engineers wanting to help design evacuation ships. Families volunteering to host refugees in their homes. Elder Kryn flickered rapidly. Refugees. Admiral, some of our species breathe methane. Others require temperatures that would freeze your blood solid. Many cannot survive in anything resembling your atmosphere. Lisa smiled. We know, we're already working on that. Our best engineers are designing habitat modules. Our chemists are figuring out how to create different atmospheric conditions. Families are learning about your different species' needs so they can prepare their homes. This is impossible, whispered another council member, a being that looked like living smoke. No species commits such resources for strangers. Here's what we're proposing, Lisa continued, her voice growing stronger. We'll take everyone. Every single being from your 12 species. We'll figure out where to put you, how to feed you, how to keep you comfortable. Our entire industrial capacity will shift to building evacuation ships and habitat stations. The council chamber fell. Silent. Lisa could see the aliens exchanging glances, or whatever passed for glances, among beings who communicated through light, sound, and electromagnetic fields. Admiral Counselor Veth said slowly, "Such an undertaking would halt your species' development for decades. Your economy, your growth, your own expansion into space, all of it would stop." So, Lisa shrugged. "We'll catch up later. Right now, there are people who need help, and we can give it." Elder Kryn pulsed bright white. "People? You call us people?" Lisa looked confused. "What else would I call you? You think you feel you have families and communities? Of course you're people." The silence stretched longer this time. Finally, Counselor Veth spoke, his voice softer than before. "Admiral Thompson, in 5,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever made such an offer." "Then it's about time someone did," Lisa replied simply. President Robert Hayes stood at the podium in the United Nations General Assembly, looking out at faces that represented every nation on Earth. The weight of what he was about to announce pressed down on his shoulders like a mountain. But his voice remained steady and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, 3 weeks ago, we made contact with 12 alien species facing extinction. Today, I'm announcing that every resource our planet has will be dedicated to saving them. Operation Cosmic Neighbor begins now." The room erupted, in whispers and shocked murmurs, but Hayes continued, "Every factory that makes cars will now make spaceships. Every laboratory that studies medicine will study alien biology. Every construction company will build habitats for beings we've never met. This is not a request. This is what we're going to do." The transformation that followed broke every rule of economics and common sense that had ever existed. Within days, the bowing assembly lines in Seattle stopped producing passenger jets and started building evacuation vessels, designed to carry crystalline beings who needed zero gravity. Ford factories in Detroit retooled overnight to manufacture atmospheric processors that could create methane environments for aliens who breathed poison gas. Dr. Maria Rodriguez had been NASA's head of xenobiology for exactly 4 days when she volunteered to lead the first human rescue mission into void-rot territory. Standing in the briefing room at Johnson Space Center, she addressed her team of volunteers, pilots, engineers, doctors, and translators who had all signed up knowing they might not come home. "The Helix system has 3 planets with coalition. Refugees trapped on them," Maria explained, pointing to the star map. "The void rot will reach them in 6 days. We have 5 days to get there, load everyone we can, and get out." Captain Jeff Williams, a former Air Force pilot, raised his hand. "Doc, our ships can hold maybe 10,000 beings each. Intel says there are 3 million refugees in that system." "Then we make multiple trips," Maria replied simply. "We keep going back until everyone's safe or the system gets consumed. That's suicide, Doc. No offense." Maria looked around the room at the faces of her volunteer crew. "And anyone who wants to leave can go now." No judgment, no questions asked. Nobody moved. "All right then, let's go save some lives." Back on Earth, the changes were happening so fast they made people's heads spin. Jennifer Davis, a soccer mom from Ohio, found herself learning how to communicate with a family of beings that looked like walking crystals. The aliens had been evacuated from a dying world and were now living in her converted garage, which had been fitted with special lighting systems that let the crystal beings photosynthesize. "The trick is matching the light patterns to their emotional state," explained Dr. Kevin Park, the government liaison assigned to help human families adapt to their new alien house guests. "Blue flashing means they're happy. Red pulsing means they're scared." Jennifer's 10-year-old daughter Katie was already an expert. She sat cross-legged on the garage floor, making rainbow light patterns with a modified laser pointer, while the young crystal being she'd nicknamed Sparkle responded. with its own colorful display. Mom Sparkle wants to know if we have any music, Katie called out. I tried playing some pop songs, but I think they prefer classical. Meanwhile, in Houston, the Garcia family was dealing with a very different challenge. Their alien guests were bug-like beings the size of small horses who communicated through complex clicking sounds. Miguel Garcia, an auto mechanic, spent his evenings after work learning to click in different rhythms, while his wife Rosa prepared meals of the synthetic proteins. Their guests needed to survive. This is completely insane, Rosa said to her neighbor, while hanging laundry. 6 months ago, the weirdest thing in my life was Miguel's obsession with football. Now I'm cooking dinner for giant beetles from another galaxy. The neighbor, Mrs. Chen, nodded sympathetically. Her own family was hosting a gaseous alien that lived in a specially constructed tank in their living room. At least yours don't accidentally set off the smoke detector when they get excited. Coalition observer Ixon floated through the converted warehouses in Los Angeles, watching human workers build habitat modules with a dedication that defied understanding. These beings were working 18-hour days, 7 days a week, to create homes for aliens they'd never met. I don't understand it, Ixon transmitted to his colleague Vorth. They're destroying their economy. Their stock markets are crashing. Their normal production has stopped completely. Their people are spending their savings to buy supplies for us. Vorth, a crystalline being embedded with the Refugee Processing Center in New York, pulsed agreement. I asked one of their leaders about it yesterday, Commander Patricia Wright. I told her that her species was bankrupting itself for strangers. Did she say? She said, and I quote, "Money grows back. People don't." The scope of the human effort was staggering beyond belief. In China, entire cities were being converted into processing centers for alien refugees. The Japanese had emptied their high-speed rail networks to transport aliens between temporary shelters. The Europeans had turned their space program over completely to building evacuation ships. Dr. Tony Martinez, working at the Coordination Center in Geneva, hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in weeks. His job was to match alien refugee needs with human resources, and the numbers were overwhelming. We've got 4 million Zephyrians who need temperatures below freezing, 2 million crystallites who need specific light frequencies, and 1 million gaseous beings who need pressurized environments, he told his exhausted staff. And that's just this week's arrivals. How are we going to manage this? Asked his assistant, Linda Cooper. Tony looked at the wall of monitors showing human volunteers working around the clock on every continent. Same way we've been managing it. One family at a time, one refugee at a time, one day at a time. Amazed the aliens most wasn't the scale of the operation, but the attitude of the humans doing it. There were no complaints about the cost, no demands for payment or favors in return. Children collected their allowances to buy supplies for alien families. Retired people volunteered at processing centers. Even criminals in prisons asked how they could help. The entire planet had reorganized itself around a simple idea. When people need help, you help them. The fact that these particular people came from other stars and breathed different gases didn't seem to matter to anyone. Dr. Karen Williams sat on a folding chair outside the massive refugee camp that had sprung up in the Colorado Plains, watching something that should have been impossible. Her 8-year-old daughter Emily was teaching a young crystalline being how to fold paper airplanes, while nearby, a group of human teenagers played what looked like tag with beetle-like alien children who skittered around on 6 legs. This should not work, said Zeph, the coalition historian who had been studying human behavior for weeks. The tentacled being's appendages curled and uncurled in what Karen had learned was a sign of deep confusion. Your species and ours have completely different biology, different ways of thinking, different needs, yet somehow ... it's somehow kids. Our kids, Karen finished, smiling as Emily's paper airplane sailed perfectly into the crystalline child's waiting appendages, causing both children to burst into laughter that somehow translated across species barriers. Zeph had been assigned to study humanity after the coalition leadership realized they were dealing with something unprecedented in galactic history. No species had ever offered such massive help to complete strangers, and the alien governments needed to understand why. "I've been going through your historical records," Zeph said, pulling out a tablet covered in tentacle-friendly controls. "Your species has a documented history of violence. Wars, conflicts, competition for resources. By all galactic standards, you should be focused purely on your own survival and advancement." Karen nodded. "We're not perfect. We've done terrible things to each other throughout history. But that's not the whole story." "Then explain it to me." Zeph's tentacles gestured toward the camp, where thousands of humans were working alongside alien refugees. "Your people have given up their homes, their savings, their entire way of life for beings they'd never met." "Wait. Makes no logical sense." Karen watched as her daughter ran over to help a gaseous alien child who had gotten tangled in a swing set. The human girl couldn't touch the gas being directly, but she carefully untangled the specialized containment suit that allowed the alien to interact with the physical world. "Let me tell you about our stories, Zeph," Karen said. "Every human culture has heroes, but they're not usually the ones who win battles or conquer enemies. Our greatest heroes are the ones who give up everything to help others." She pulled out her phone and showed Zeph pictures from a children's book. "We tell our kids about a man who died to save people he'd never met, about firefighters who run into burning buildings to rescue strangers, about ordinary people who risked everything to hide families during genocides." Zeph's tentacles stilled as he processed this. "But that's evolutionarily disadvantageous? Species that prioritize others over themselves should die out?" "Maybe," Karen agreed. "But we didn't. Yeah. And maybe that's because helping others actually makes us stronger, not weaker." Over the following days, Zeph dove deeper into human culture, and what he found challenged everything he thought he knew about intelligent species. He studied human mythology and found stories from every culture about people sacrificing themselves for strangers. He looked at human history and found countless examples of individuals and groups choosing to help others even when it cost them everything. "Look at this." Zeph showed Karen a holographic display filled with historical data. "During your World War II, many humans risked their lives to save others who weren't even their own species. They saved dogs, cats, even zoo animals. During natural disasters, humans consistently risked their own safety to help strangers." Karen nodded. "Damn." Saying, "We're only as strong as our weakest member. It might sound stupid to other species, but it's how we think." "But why?" Zeph's frustration was clear in the rapid movement of his tentacles. "I've studied a dozen other species. Crystallines help their own kind, but ignore others. The Zephyrians trade assistance, but always expect payment. The gas beings form alliances, but only when it benefits them. You're the only species that helps others just because they need help." Karen was quiet for a moment, watching as a group of human volunteers worked with alien engineers to build better temporary shelters. The humans were learning alien construction techniques while the aliens adapted to human materials, and somehow, they were creating something better than either could have built alone. "Maybe it's because we know what it's like to need help," she said finally. "Every human has been helpless at some point. We're all born completely dependent on others. Maybe that teaches us something other species don't learn." Zeph spent weeks interviewing humans from every walk of life, from world leaders to children, from wealthy business people to homeless individuals. The pattern was always the same. When asked why they were helping alien refugees, humans gave answers that defied logic. "Because they need help," said construction worker Mike Johnson, who had been working 8-hour days building alien habitats. "It's the right thing to do," explained teacher Betty Rodriguez, who had converted her classroom into a daycare for alien children. "Because nobody should face extinction alone," stated billionaire tech CEO David Kim, who had donated his entire fortune to the refugee effort. "I think I understand now," Zeph told Karen during their final conversation before he returned to Coalition headquarters. "Your species doesn't see helping others as a cost or a burden. You see it as, what's the word, ... your purpose?" Karen smiled. "Close. We see it as being human. We have another saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. We've been given this amazing planet, these incredible abilities, this chance to exist in the universe. How could we not share that with others who need it? Even if it costs you everything. Especially then, Karen replied, watching Emily play with her new alien friends. Because what good is having everything if you won't share it with people who have nothing? Zeph's tentacles curled, and what Karen had learned was the alien equivalent of a smile. Your species is either the most foolish in the galaxy or the wisest. Beginning to think it might be both. As Zeph prepared his report for the coalition leadership, he included a simple conclusion that would change galactic civilization forever. Humans don't help others despite being human. They help others because being human means caring for everyone, regardless of species, origin, or ability to repay the kindness. General Mike Davis walked into the coalition. Emergency meeting with a thick folder under his arm and the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The assembled alien leaders had been working around the clock for months, trying every possible solution to stop the void rot. Nothing had worked. The sentient darkness continued to spread, consuming entire star systems faster than they could evacuate them. General Davis, Elder Crin's energy form flickered with exhaustion. We appreciate everything your species has done, but we're running out of time. Our latest projections show the void rot will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Mike nodded grimly. We know. That's why we're here. He opened his folder and activated a holographic projector. Dr. James Parker, our chief physicist, has been working with your scientists on this. Jim, show them what we found. Dr. Parker stepped forward, his usually neat appearance disheveled from weeks of nonstop work. We've been studying the void. Rot's energy signature, and we think we've found a way to stop it. The entity feeds on stellar energy, but there's a specific frequency that disrupts its molecular structure. We've tried frequency weapons, Counselor Veth interrupted, his insectoid features showing frustration. They have no effect. That's because you need massive amplification, Parker continued. We're talking about turning an entire star into a weapon, a controlled stellar explosion that creates a galaxy-wide pulse at exactly the right frequency. The chamber fell silent. Finally, a crystalline being at the far end of the table spoke up. The energy requirements would be enormous. No artificial power source could generate that much force. Exactly, Mike said quietly. Would have to be a real star? A big one? Elder Crin flickered rapidly between colors. General, surely you're not suggesting ... our sun, Mike confirmed. Soul. It's the right size, the right composition, and it's positioned perfectly to send a pulse through this entire spiral arm of the galaxy. One controlled explosion, and the void rot dies everywhere at once. The aliens erupted in shocked chatter. Tentacles waved frantically. Energy beings pulsed in distress. The crystalline representative's light patterns went chaotic. This is madness. Counselor Veth stood up, towering over the table. Your entire planet would be destroyed. Your whole species would die. Dr. Parker pulled up another hologram showing detailed evacuation plans. We've run the numbers. If we start immediately, we can evacuate Earth's population in 18 months. It'll be tight, but it's possible. Where would you go? Asked a gasping representative, its voice filled with disbelief. Wherever you'll have us, Mike replied. Simply, Mars, the moon, space stations, other worlds you've already offered to share. We'll figure it out. Elder Crin's form brightened to almost blinding intensity. General Davis, you cannot be serious about this. You're talking about destroying your homeworld, your sun, everything your species has ever known? Yes, we are. Simple certainty in Mike's voice silenced the room. He looked around at the assembled alien leaders, beings from civilizations millions of years older than humanity, and saw something he'd never expected to see in such advanced creatures. They were afraid. Not of the void rot, but of what humans were willing to do. Listen, Mike continued, his voice growing stronger. We've done the math on every other option. Traditional weapons don't work. Evacuation can't keep up with the void rot spread. Diplomatic contact is impossible because it's not truly intelligent in a way we can communicate with. This is the only solution that actually stops the threat permanently. But your planet, whispered a small, bird-like alien. It's your home. Dr. Parker stepped forward again, Home is where your family is. Our family now includes 12 other species scattered across dozens of worlds. Earth is just a place. The people are what matter. Counselor Veth slammed his appendage on the table so hard it cracked. No, we will not be responsible for the destruction of an entire world. Find another way. There is no other way, Mike said. Calmly, we've had our best minds working with yours for months. This is it. Elder Kryn flickered between blue and red rapidly. Even if we agreed to this insane plan, which we won't, the logistics are impossible. Evacuating 8 billion beings. Relocating them across the galaxy, building the infrastructure to support them. Already started, Mike interrupted. President Hayes signed the evacuation order yesterday. As we speak, every shipyard on Earth is building evacuation vessels. Every space-capable nation is preparing their populations for relocation. The room erupted in chaos again. Aliens were arguing in 12 different languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the overlapping conversations. You can't do this without our permission, Counselor Veth shouted over the noise. Actually, we can, Mike replied. It's our star, our planet, our choice. We're not asking for permission. We're telling you what's going to happen so you can prepare. But even as humanity began the massive evacuation, Dr. Maria Rodriguez was working feverishly in her lab, trying to find another way. She'd been studying the void rot samples they'd managed to collect, looking for any weakness that didn't require destroying Earth's sun. 3 weeks into the evacuation, with millions of humans already relocated to temporary shelters across the solar system, Maria made a breakthrough. Mike, Jim, get down here now, she shouted into her communicator, staring at her computer screen in disbelief. When the general and the physicist arrived at her lab, Maria was practically bouncing with excitement. I found it. Way to amplify the solar pulse without actually destroying the sun. She pulled up her calculations, showing how Earth's magnetic field could be used as a massive amplifier. If we position these resonance generators at specific points around the planet, we can channel the sun's natural energy output and amplify it by a factor of 10,000. It'll create the same galaxy-wide pulse, but soul stays intact. Dr. Parker studied the equations, his eyes growing wide. Maria, this is brilliant. But the power requirements for the generators, already solved. She grinned. Every nuclear reactor on Earth, plus the fusion plants we've been building for the evacuation ships, we drain every power source on the planet for about 6 hours, channel it all through the resonance network. Boom, galaxy saved, sun intact, everyone goes home. The plan worked perfectly. When the amplified pulse swept across the galaxy at faster than light speed, the void rot simply stopped. The sentient darkness that had terrorized 12 species for decades dissolved like smoke in the wind, destroyed by a frequency it couldn't adapt to or absorb. But what happened next changed galactic civilization forever. The Coalition didn't just thank humanity and go back to their normal lives. They completely restructured their society around what they called the human doctrine, the revolutionary idea that advanced civilizations had a moral obligation to protect and help less advanced ones, not because it benefited them, but because it was simply right. Before we met humans, Elder Kryn announced to the Galactic Assembly, we thought intelligence meant survival of the fittest. Now we understand that true intelligence means survival of everyone. The galaxy had learned something unprecedented. Sometimes the youngest, weakest species in the room might be the one with the courage to save everyone else.